Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're here today to talk about the need for clean water funding in the New York State budget. This is a need especially true not only for Long Island, but throughout the state of New York and throughout communities from the Great Lakes to Long Island Sound, from Medina to Montauk. My name is Adrienne Esposito. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment. I am delighted to be joined today by Assemblywoman Szilagyi, who is not only Assemblywoman for her great district, but is also the Deputy Majority Leader in the New York State Senate, and also the Chair of the Black, Hispanic, Asian, and Puerto Rican Caucus in the Assembly as well. Also joined by Assemblyman Keith Brown, and also by Amanda from the Long Island Water Conference. Well, also here we have Kelly, who's representing Senator Rhodes as well. So thank you for joining us, Kelly. We're here today because we need for the clean water funding in the proposed New York State budget to be restored. Unfortunately, the governor has proposed cutting the budget by 50%. From $500 million to $250 million. Now is not the time to turn off the tap to clean water funding. We don't need a drip, drip, drip of funding. We need full force for the water to be clean and for the funding to be flowing. You know, this Clean Water Fund was established in 2017. And since then, New York State has given it unprecedented funding at the total of $5 billion. It's a lot of money, and we have made meaningful progress. We have upgraded sewage treatment plants. We've done replacements of old septics for new innovative systems that actually filter nitrogen. And we've provided lots of grants throughout the state of New York to filter out toxic chemicals, including PFAS and 1,4-dioxane. In fact, Long Island has been a particular recipient of that money. We have some examples for you. From 2017 to 2023, Town of Hempstead has received $85 million. Hicksville Water District, $34 million. Village of Garden City, $25 million. South Huntington, your district, $15 million. Little villages like Patchogue, $7 million. Suffolk County Water Authority, $48 million. That is a lot of money. And even though we have made progress, we have a lot more to do. And what I mean by that is even though we've received a lot of money, a lot of projects went unfunded. How many projects, you might ask? Well, we have the data for you. Sadly, just last year in 2023, Long Island had 66 projects that went unfunded that were submitted to the state. Those projects are total up to be $146 million, $674,000 as well. So there are many projects still needed right here on Long Island and throughout the state of New York. Also, we have needs that are coming up. In New York State, we have 500,000 lead pipes that need to be replaced. That's going to cost money. We also know the EPA will be codifying into law a lower drinking water standard for PFAS chemicals. When that standard is lowered, 296 more water suppliers will need the technology to filter out that toxic chemical. So the needs are great, and we don't want to stop progress now. Nothing brings together bipartisan support, Democrats and Republicans, like the issue of clean water. So we're thrilled to have with us today Assemblywoman Szilagyi to talk about this important issue.
Thank you, Adrienne, and I really appreciate the Citizens Committee's responsiveness in this issue here on Long Island. And I said before, you know, this is a bipartisan issue. This is about our community. This is about Long Island. And we don't have to point to Michigan to see that there's not only a clean water crisis there, but here on the island we have a clean water crisis. There are so many New Yorkers who don't have access to clean water. And so now is not the time to stop the funding. Now is the time to actually enhance the funding and provide more funding so that we can support our communities. And when we think about underserved communities like middle-class communities in which we represent, they deserve clean water funding. So when we saw the budget, we were disappointed. We were disappointed that there was an extreme cut. And even though we've gotten monies from all different places, we cannot rely on the local taxpayer to fund these projects. And you saw that there are many projects that go unfunded. We need to make sure that we're pulling state resources down to Long Island, especially Long Island being a place where we don't get our tax dollars back.
That's right.
And this is an essential program to prove to New Yorkers that we care about Long Island. So, Adrienne said the points very well. Don't have to go over it again because that's why we have her here. But I want to just impress upon my colleagues and leadership that we need to make sure that we're funding clean water programs, because our communities cannot wait for this funding in another budget cycle. We cannot stop the progress we made with getting rid of lead out of pipes. We cannot stop the progress we made in ensuring that we get forever chemicals and 1,4-dioxide out of our water. We can't stop this progress. We have to move forward full force because every New Yorker deserves clean water. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Good job.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is from Suffolk County, Assemblyman Keith Brown.
Thank you. Thanks, Adrienne. And I just want everybody to know that I wore my green socks just for Adrienne.
That's beautiful. I'm very impressed.
So I just want to echo some of the things were said. Environmental conservation is not a partisan issue. Clean water is not a partisan issue. And clean water is not a luxury, right? It's an essential, basic human need. I'm New York State Assemblyman Keith Brown. I represent the 12th Assembly District. My district runs from the Nassau border to Smithtown, and I have 60 miles of coastline within that district. I want to thank Adrienne and Citizens Campaign for the environment, as well as my colleagues in the Assembly. I know Assemblyman Steve Stern was not able to make it this morning, but myself, Steve, and Michaela have collaborated on several important issues, and this being one of the fundamental ones. And I appreciate the fact that we're shining a light on Governor Hochul's executive budget proposal to slash this clean water funding by 50%. 50%. The threat to our drinking water here on Long Island has never been more prevalent. With forever chemicals like 1,4-dioxane and other harmful toxic contaminants, it's difficult for the Suffolk County Water Authority as well as other water districts here on Long Island to keep up with the regulations without the proper funding. So budgets are about choices and they're about priority. So I'm happy to join this bipartisan effort led by Adrienne and Citizen Campaign for the Environment to restore this funding. You've heard about what we're doing with the Sewer Commission. That bill is going to come back up to Albany. We're hopefully going to vote on it quickly and get it back down to the county legislature, because there's never been a more important issue when it comes to Long Island than what Adrienne likes to say are sewers.
Wow.
So, but I really appreciate the effort that she puts into this day in and day out, because great leaders unite people, and we've discovered, and as I discovered in the short time I've been in Albany, that in order to get anything done, it takes a coalition, and you're one of the best coalition builders that I know.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate.
That's on the record.
Yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And also, we'd like to hear from very much, Amanda is from the Long Island Water Conference. That is the coalition of all the drinking water suppliers on Long Island who really rely on this money to not only provide for us clean water, but also affordable water. Those grants have meaning to every ratepayer here on Long Island.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrienne, and thank you to our assembly. Good morning, my name is Amanda Field, and I'm here today to represent drinking water utilities and our member organizations across Long Island. Thank you for this opportunity. My colleagues include operators, engineers, scientists, commissioners, regulators, executives, educators, and young water professionals who prioritize providing safe, reliable, and affordable drinking water to our residents. There is nothing that is more fundamental to our health and well-being and economic development than safe and affordable drinking water. Our core principles are the protection of public health and the environment, and we take pride in New York State's leadership role in advancing these initiatives. Thanks to the collaborative efforts With legislators and the State Department of Health, we have established practical and feasible laws that prioritize the public's interest. With help from science, technological advances, and funding support, water providers have been able to meet the challenges set before them, leading the path in the industry. New York State made history when the legislature worked to enact the Clean Water Infrastructure Act in 2017, which invested $2.5 billion over 5 years in upgrading wastewater and drinking water infrastructure, protecting source water, implementing septic system replacement programs, and other provisions to protect our waters across the state. The last 5 years' budget included an additional $500 million as part of a commitment to provide an additional $2.5 billion over 5 years to date. This successful program has received $5 billion to upgrade clean water infrastructure. The last 5 years' commitment has come to an end. However, our clean water needs have not. The current proposal to cut the funding in the budget for the Clean Water Infrastructure Act in half from $500 million to $250 million will not come close to meeting the public health needs of New Yorkers. The CWIA has made an enormous impact in advancing New York as a national leader. We have seen much success with the state's investment in the CWIA and protecting our drinking water. However, we have much work to do. New York State has estimated that the combined wastewater and drinking water infrastructure needs in the state exceed over $80 billion over the next 20 years. Today, we are at a critical crossroads in our history as new and increasing challenges emerge with top drinking water challenges. Our aging infrastructure. With each passing year, New York's drinking water and wastewater and stormwater infrastructure gets older and more susceptible to catastrophic failure. As we've heard about our emerging contaminants, which we've had a lot of help with over the last several years, our advances in technology have enabled us to detect more and more contaminants at ever lower concentrations in our source water. New York, and Long Island in particular, has led the way in the fight to identify, regulate, and remediate these substances, and has been awarded grants to construct treatment systems to remove these contaminants from our drinking water following state regulations for all the perfluorinated compounds, PFOA, PFOS, and 1,4-dioxane. The cost to install these treatment systems is between anywhere from $2 million to $10 million, depending on the location and the concentrations in each well. And the annual operation and maintenance costs can exceed $500,000 per treatment system. And as we know and we've heard, the EPA is set to regulate these drinking water standards at even lower numbers. And these compounds from the New York State Department of Health estimates that this will mean that another 300 additional water utilities across the state will exceed these lower standards and need to build treatment. Installing advanced treatment technology is critical to protect public health, but it will also be very costly and will require additional state funding. It's estimated that an additional $444 million will be needed just on the treatment and technology for those PFAS chemicals. And these amounts do not include the extremely high costs of sampling and lab testing and the cost for the critical need of additional resources required to handle the testing. And we've heard about our lead that we must remove for our replacement of our lead lines. The EPA has proposed regulations that will require 100% replacement of lead pipes by 2037. New York has estimated 500,000 lead drinking water pipes that need to be replaced. The average cost to remove and replace the water service lateral is approximately $10,000 per lateral. This translates to a burden of $5 billion across New York State for water suppliers. New York communities cannot bear this financial burden. And there's one more thing I need to mention that we feel will be very helpful for water suppliers. We're asking to provide $100 million to fund the State Water Infrastructure Action Program, SWAP. Similar to the successful CHIPS program that we know about, SWAP would estimate a consistent reoccurring funding mechanism that would enable local government leaders to plan water repair and replace maintenance projects more efficiently and protectively. So the state's drinking water suppliers continue to be ready to meet the needs and challenges before us, but increased challenges require increased funding and support from our state partners. Access to clean, safe, and affordable drinking water is one of the most basic pillars of our society. At a time when our funding needs are increasing, such severe and significant cuts would jeopardize our public health and cannot be justified. Therefore, we ask that you not only restore the funding, but increase it to $600 million. It is equally important to consider adding line items allocations for each program in an effort to prioritize and ensure clean water needs are being met. We recognize this is a very challenging budget year with the critical needs all around. However, there is nothing that is more critical to our health and well-being than safe and affordable drinking water. We're proud to be partners in this fight, but recognize that without adequate delivery of the basic right will be delayed and deferred, and water will become simply unaffordable. So thank you so much for today being able to speak about this, and I hope we've given you new perspective, and thank you.
So the bottom line is the New York State Clean Water Coalition, which includes statewide environmental groups, the water suppliers throughout the state of New York, including the New York State Rural Water Suppliers, AWWA, which is the American Waterworks Association, the New York sector, as well as an organization called NIWEA, which is the organization of all the wastewater treatment operators. We've all come together, we've agreed, and we're asking the governor and the Senate and the Assembly to not only restore the clean water budget, but to add an enhancement, and therefore put in $600 million into the budget for clean water needs for here in the state of New York. I just want to refer you one more time to Nassau County. We had the privilege of looking at a recent report that assessed every single sewer pipeline throughout the state, throughout the county of Nassau, and the cost assessment associated with repairing the wastewater treatment lines throughout Nassau is $100 million. And when we don't repair them, they leak and they degrade because they're old. They're 90 years old, 100 years old, and in some cases even more than that. When they leak and degrade, we get sinkholes. Last year, in 2023, Nassau County had an unprecedented 7 giant sinkholes in Nassau County. Not because we live on limestone, not because of the geology of the area, but because we have aging, degrading infrastructure that's causing our streets to cave in, and really a repair bill that is astronomical. It would be less expensive to maintain the pipes than it is to fix them after they break. But we're not doing that yet because of money. So there is a tremendous amount of support. We're hopeful to restore this line item in the budget to where it needs to be at $600 million. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. Do you have any questions? You got the feed? Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So if we could just get one nice